All right, hello everyone. I am back with another video, and today I want to still continue discussing my children's book, the Bible story book, and this I feel like they just oversimplified, complicated adult um, Bible stories or stories within the Bible, and I feel like they don't take in consideration the maturity level, the emotional level, or even the spiritual um, level of the child. And certain stories just shouldn't have been discussed with children. They should have been discussed in a much later age. And to me, this leaves room by oversimplifying it. This just leaves room for spiritual confusion. Um, it can cause spiritual harm. And I also feel like it leaves room for manipulation because these stories, they do victim blaming. And then they also put you in this whole mindset of I have to be good or bad. And then it starts out, especially like with even King Saul, you know, um, God asked him to be king and convinced him to be king because he's like, I'm too young, I'm from the smallest tribe. And he's like, you'll be perfect. And so he agrees to be king, and everybody's all happy. And the minute that he makes a mistake because he feels like he doesn't have um, God's support, he's no longer a good person. The very last sentence states that he's bad now. So it definitely is a good or bad thing. And there's just no grace or conversation. You're just, especially with Saul, that he decided that he couldn't be king anymore, and that it was time for him to die. So one of the main things I also want to talk about was Samuel, because we were told as witnesses not to have anything with spirit mediums or the occult or anything like that. And he actually instructed Saul to outlaw spirit mediums, to get rid of spirit mediums, fortune tellers, and all that. So this story, which they do cite Samuel, but they don't go all the way as far as chapter 28. But that chapter 28 is like the end of Saul's career as king, and it explains why he's no longer the king. But the Bible storybook painted this cute little story about God thought he was great and he did such good things and everybody was happy, and then he makes the one mistake. It mentioned he made the mistake of doing the sacrifice of his own on his own, and then God was mad at him and because he disobeyed. The whole thing with being obedient or not being obedient, and so he no longer could be king. So when you go into scripture, which we as witnesses are encouraged to read the Bible also along with the book, and finding out what happened to him. Um, so he, even though he had outlawed spirit mediums, he decided that he was going to speak to a spirit medium because he had not heard from God. Basically, God was ignoring him, so he had not heard from God. So this story basically is about talking to the dead, a demon appearing, or as I say, a bad angel. I always want to call him Satan. Satan actually used spoke to Samuel, and it wasn't actually. I mean, spoke to Saul, and it wasn't actually the spirit of Samuel. And I'm just going to read some of the scripture, and it's 1 Samuel 28. So Samuel had died, and I'll just start with verse 6. Although Saul would inquire of Jehovah, Jehovah never answered him, either by dreams or by the Urim or by the prophets, which I need to look up what the Urim is. So Jehovah was ignoring Saul because he was angry with him. And he was angry with Saul because Saul did not kill off King Amalek, I think is how they pronounced it in here. And that was a tribe that was at war with the Israelites, and Saul killed off everyone but the king and some animals. And so Jehovah was mad at him because he did not do exactly what he wasn't completely obedient and didn't do exactly what was told, and left this one person alive and some animals. And so God was done with him. So I'm going to go back to reading the scripture. Finally, Saul said to his servants, "Seek for me a woman who is a mistress of spirit mediumship, and I will go to her and consult her." Then his servant said to him, "Look, there is a woman who is a mistress of spirit mediumship in Endor." So Saul disguised himself and clothed himself with other garments and went, and he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. He now said, "Employ divination, please, for me by spirit mediumship, and bring up for me the one whom I shall designate to you." However, the woman said to him, "Here you yourself well know what Saul did, how he cut off the spirit mediums and the professional fortune tellers of events from the land. Why then are you acting like a trapper against my soul to have me put to death?" Immediately Saul swore to her by Jehovah, saying, "As Jehovah is alive, guilt of error will befall you in this matter." Which is ironic that he swore by the name of the very God who said, "Don't do this." At this the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" To this he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." When the woman saw Samuel, she began crying out of the top of her voice. And the woman went on to say to Saul, "Why did you trick me when you yourself are Saul?" But the king said to her, "Do not be afraid, but what did you see?" And the woman went on to say to Saul, "A god I saw coming out of the earth." At once he said to her, "What is his form?" To which she said, "It is an old man coming up, and he has himself covered with a sleeveless coat." At that Saul recognized that it was Samuel, and he proceeded to blow low with his face to the earth and to bow low. I said that wrong. And he proceeded to bow low with his face to the earth and prostrate himself. Now, this is my whole point with the Samuel part, because my actually taken the time to reread the Bible, but I reread the Bible, the King James Version, and along with the Apocrypha. I didn't use the New World Translation, which I'm actually reading the New World Translation just for the purpose of making sure that I actually use the doctrines and the books and the material that the witnesses put out themselves to address to me some of the hypocrisy, the gaslighting. And so they say that that the body has no soul. I know someone in one of my comments before argued and said witnesses did not say that. Yes, they do. They say that I grew up in it. They say witnesses don't have a soul, that we are the soul, that the body is the soul. And they had a Watchtower from 1973, which was April 15th, and it says pages 230 to 231. So it says, "The Bible makes it plain that there is no conscious existence in the death state." Then they cite Ecclesiastes 9:10. And then they also say in paragraph 3, "So when your soul dies, you die. You cease to have consciousness. You cease to exist." And this article is called "What is Your Soul? The Watchtower Announcing Jehovah's Kingdom, 1973. And then they go on to discuss in the next, "Your view of the soul affects your life." So they're literally stating, if you choose to believe that you have a soul beyond death, basically that you're fooling yourself. And they said that the lie of the soul started when the serpent told Eve that you surely won't die. And so that it began all the way back then. So witnesses do teach that you don't have a soul. So my point here is that if they teach you don't have a soul, and Samuel was dead, they mourned his death, he's been dead. Saul knew, obviously because he's probably dealt with the spirit mediums before, because he literally said, go get one for me, because he knew it worked. Saul went and sought out a spirit medium, and Samuel came back up and completely spoke to him. And Saul made sure that the spirit medium was speaking to Samuel, because he asked, what is his form? Is it old? Well, what is his form? And she said, it is an old man coming up, and he has himself covered with a sleeveless coat. So Saul recognized Samuel's attire and knew that that was actually Saul. And so then they proceed to have a conversation. And Samuel began to say to Saul, why have you disturbed me by having me brought up? Right? So if there's no existence, Samuel was actually conscious that he was resting, as they say, you're asleep, and then had him brought up. So Samuel was aware of his existence beyond being alive on earth, because he said, you woke me up, you brought me back up. But yet they're saying there is no existence. But yet he literally said, why have you disturbed me by having me brought up? To this Saul said, I am in very sore straits, as the Philistines are fighting against me, and God himself has departed from me and has answered me no more, either by means of the prophets or by dreams. So even though they got rid of all those type of spirit mediums, they were still using a form of prophecy, or I would say divination, because he needed some type of spiritual guidance through dream work or through prophets, which is prophesying. So he answers me no more, either by dreams of the prophet, by the prophets, or by dreams, so that I am calling you to let me know what I shall do. They called on a man that is dead, and witnesses teach that there's no way to speak to the dead, that if you are speaking to a dead, you must be speaking to a demon. Yet Saul made sure that he was who he was speaking to, but it goes even further. So, and Samuel went on to say, why then do you inquire of me when Jehovah himself has departed from you and proves to be your adversary? And Jehovah will do for himself just as he spoke by means of me. And Jehovah will rip the kingdom away from your hand and give it to your fellow man David. As you did not obey the voice of Jehovah and did not execute his burning anger against Amalek, that is why this thing that Jehovah will certainly do to you this day. So Samuel lets him know that he's going to lose his kingdom, all because he didn't completely obey Jehovah. And Jehovah will also give Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. At even the camp of Israel, Jehovah will give into the hand of the Philistines. So Samuel also let him know that you will be with me. So you guys are going to die, and you're going to be over here with me. But yet the dead are conscious of nothing. So they explain this away by saying that it wasn't Saul that they were speaking to, that it was an angel, that it was Satan that came through, a demon that came through and was pretending to be Samuel. I keep mixing the names up, pretending to be Samuel, which is still completely contradictory. So why would you, the very thing that you say someone should stay away from is the very thing that you said that, well, part of the prediction came true. So in the article, there's actually an article where they even state this. Let's see if I can find it. Yes. So Watchtower, 1979, February 15th, pages 5 through 8. Spiritistic communication, why not? The Watchtower announcing Jehovah's Kingdom, 1979. And it's under the article, King Saul condemned for spiritistic communication. So it speaks about what I just read about how Saul asked the spirit medium to call up Samuel, and of course Samuel himself the lady herself condemned Saul, saying that you outlawed this, so you shouldn't even be approaching me about this. So within the article itself, though, under King Saul condemned for spiritistic communication, it said, did this prediction come true? Yes, but only part. The Israelites were given into the hand of the Philistines, which I say is the true part, and suffered a terrible defeat. Saul and 3 of his sons died in the battle. Contrary to the prediction, however, Saul's son Ishbo, can't pronounce his name, one of his sons, did not die that day. So they're saying that Jehovah's prediction still came true, but it was spoken through a demon. Because Saul got the prediction from a demon, and so God sent his message through a demon. He used the medium of a demon to get his message to Saul that you're going to die. I know I haven't spoken to you. I haven't been answering any of your prayers, and I haven't spoken to any of your prophets or to you through your dreams. I stopped communicating with you. But since you sought out a medium that I told you to tell everybody to stop using, because you're not supposed to, because you're going to actually have contact, you could accidentally have contact with a demon. So I'm going to use that mediumship to let you know you're still going to die. So that, to me, it's contradictory. Doesn't make a lick of sense. The whole thing about we don't have souls. And that our life is our experience. It's actually, it's kind of hard to explain how they say it. And I grew up in this, so I, at that time, just believe what I was taught. So now I look back at it and I'm going, it doesn't make sense. So, and then also when I look back on it and then I actually see the contradiction of their own literature and the reasons that they say they believe that the body doesn't have a soul. And I mean, I also thought about the people that Jesus himself brought back to life, like Lazarus and the little girl. And but they explained that away by saying that God gave him the authority to bring back those lives, because supposedly we're all in Jehovah's memory, and through his memory he's going to bring those who are worthy to come back, bring them back that way. But I thought how if you're saying Jesus is God's son, then he does have, well, he said in the scripture that God gave him the authority to bring them back. So, but it was still, to me, as I say, a person's soul being put back into the flesh of the body, which is who they are. The flesh is just a vehicle for a soul. That's what I believe now. The flesh is a vehicle for a soul. But thank you for listening to this video. It was just something that I wanted to express from a different angle, other than didn't focus so much on the main character, just one of the side characters in the story, which was Samuel, who was dealing with King Saul. So I will be back with another video. And again, thank you guys for listening. And I hope this made some kind of sense to you. But thank you for listening.